Heroes and Legends, Generations 4, The Holy War, Episode 21. The Pinta forces, both from the Billdaron and Elder forces, have finally gone to settle their scores once and for all and determine which force should rule all of Pinta. This battle was happening simultaneously with the four forces of the Billdaron, Elder, UDN, and Orician forces. These two epic battles were happening to conclude the climax of this war. For their part, Anfi, the leader of the Pinta and the second strongest woman in all of the universe, vowed to destroy Ahab Minwin and avenge her father. She had known that Jonathan had returned and several other officers. And so Ahab Minwin was the only officer that had not yet revealed himself in a number of years. Determining that this final battle he would show up, she was more than determined to finally rid herself of the old relic of the Pinta past and fully secure all of Pinta for herself, not for the glory of the Billdaron, but for her. With her was Anex and Richard II and the newcomer Benny, on all their forces. This is going to be a final battle indeed. Elsewhere, while waiting for his lord to return, Naaman Olium was determined to protect their main camp and their position until his lord could arrive. Elsewhere, the youngsters Jonathan and April prepared themselves for war, a war which they will never witness again. This war will unite all of Pinta. We must wait for our lord's arrival, said April. Jonathan, with his spear in hand, I will do my best not to cut down for Pinta. For Lord Minwin, when he arrives, he will be the one to unite us all. We must safeguard ourselves in this battle and win it with little casualties. Norman Ullman was still only concerned about the defense of his lord. He could care less, Pinta or no Pinta, who stood in his way, hard to fall. Elsewhere, Benny was looking at the other two in defense mode. I was curious. I could finally make a name for myself for beating these legendary heroes of the Elder forces and unite all of Pinta under our rule. I could be a captain at last if those two under my thumb. Our forces advance. Reducing Richard II. Caution Benny, do not charge recklessly. That Ullman is in their ranks, and the enemy's commander has not yet arrived. We should go together, as promised. So the prime shooter commanded his archery forces and shoot up and blasted units to fire upon the Elder forces. The Elder forces were being bombarded as NX went to do a sneak attack. However, Ullman sneaked through this and went himself to deal with NX. Seeing that the battle was going as it was going, Anfi had enough. She wanted to face Arab personally, and seeing that his forces were struggling against her own, she transformed into a giant alien monster, just like her father, and started blasting upon the enemy. Both Richard II's artillery and Afi's blasts were devastating the Elder forces. They had to retreat further and further. However, all of this was stopped at a sudden appearance of a black clothed man with black aura and long white hair had appeared in the sky, absorbing all of the attacks to himself, and they were completely evaporated when they got close. It is he that all was waiting on. It was Ahab Minwin. At last he had arrived. Stunned by this, Richard II and Richard II ordered his forces to pull back, and Benny was stunned and didn't know what to do, so Richard II grabbed Benny and ran away. The Elder Pinta rejoiced as their lord had finally arrived. He had unlocked his prime powers, was powerful and very strong. Anfi, still transformed, mockingly said, "So the old man has finally come. The coward comes at the end of the war. Huh, you've missed 2 wars to be exact. Now I will finish you off with one blow." Anfi summoned all of her strength into one powerful blast to obliterate Ahab Minwin back to the Stone Ages. She fired. There was a mighty explosion which could wipe out the entire battlefield. But in an instant, the blast was gone, and Ahab Minwin simply dusted off his shoulders and told Anfi to come. Anfi, enraged and infuriated, raced and stormed towards the floating Arab, but Arab disappeared before she could fight him. And then all of a sudden, Ahab Minwin came from the heavens, and with a punch in his right hand, slammed Anfi straight to the ground, similar to what Damien had done to her father many moons ago. Anfi was completely bewildered and completely flattened onto the ground. Anfi's forces couldn't believe it. Ahab was that strong. Anfi struggled to get up as Ahab Minwin went to signal her to come. All this time, Minwin said nothing. Anfi was cussing left and right, infuriated. So she charged again. And while she charged, she fired all she had at Minwin, who simply began to dodge them at lightning speed. And then he appeared again and punched her to the left side, disappeared, appeared again, punched her to the right side, and then he closed up his hands together and slammed Anfi down again. This time, Anfi transformed back to herself. Then Minwin was surrounded by Anfi's soldiers, who was going to attack him. He simply let out his energy and he pushed the Billdaron forces away from him. Next, Benny and Richard II went after him. However, Minwin just simply dodged and slapped both of them, knocking them unconscious. Ahab Minwin's power was none like anything any Pinta had ever seen. Norman and April and Jonathan were dumbfounded. This was their lord. They couldn't believe it. He was super strong. Anfi, using the energy she had left, was preparing for one final blast attack. And then Minwin, finally saying something, said, "Come, if your demise, Pinta will belong to me, as it rightfully should." The 2 forces prepared for one final clash, determine the fate of all of Pinta. But however, before they could clash, messengers from the Billdaron and Elder side are reported to the battlefield and said they should stop all hostilities. Billdaron and Elder forces have joined a temporary truce against the Irishans. All sides were dumbfounded. What mighty force could force these long-hated enemies of the Elders and Billdaron to temporarily call an alliance? The fighting was stopped with no clear victor, as everyone returned back to their headquarters, preparing for the great meeting in the Holy Land.